Hello, everyone. It is the top of the hour, so we can go ahead and get started. Today is the group conversation for the enablement section. My name is Eric Brinkman. I'm the interim director for product for the enablement section. And then I wanted to give a big shout out and thanks to Chun Du, who's our enablement section engineering director, for assisting with a lot of the slides. I don't know, Chun, if you want to say hi.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Great. As usual, we'll just go down the list of questions in the group conversation doc. And it looks like, Sid, you've got the first question. Do you want to go ahead and voice that?
Yeah, thanks. What's the timeline to get Puma on a Canary instance with production traffic? And how is it going with Puma on .org?
I can answer that question. So our plan is to get Puma in the Canary and the production in next release. So that's the target goal, and the configuration right now is very similar to Unicorn, so that we don't break anything. Then slowly tune up the configuration to take benefit of Puma.
So you're saying we're doing it single threaded first?
Pretty much, that's what is we're doing the dev environment. Camille can add more detail.
Yeah, so right now we are running on dev for 2 weeks. The configuration on dev is like the same number of workers as Unicorn, but we are running 4 times more threads than on Unicorn. So we have like probably 3.5 more capacity in terms of the processing the requests. We don't find like any problems like with running on dev. We actually this week enabled Puma on the ops.gitlab.net with the help of the JARF. Once we finish validation of the Puma on dev, what we are right now going to do is like reduce the number of the workers, but keep the same number of threads, and see if we get like the same results as we have today. Because right now on the dev, we see higher memory usage because we process more requests concurrently on the single process. But with the reduction of the number of the workers, we should have the same, actually still higher the capacity, but we should see the memory benefit. Once we compare that, we're gonna then move on to enable that on the next environment, and the next environment gonna be staging. It seems that we're gonna need very short stint on staging, so then gonna be a canary.
Cool. And is it a few days or 30 days, or what was the timeline? I'm not advocating to make it short. I just want to know what's in it. What's the idea?
I think that we should run on the canary in the at most next 30 days.
Cool. Thanks. And surprising that we haven't found any problems. I expected a lot of like, I don't know, multi-threading problems and memory going out of whack and stuff like that.
We run sidekey in the multi-threaded mode, but like it seems to be like working fine, at least from our testing. We did not change any configuration since it was enabled, so it is surprising. That's why we need a little more validation with changing different configuration settings. But it looks very promising at this moment.
Thanks.
Yeah, just a quick comment here. Sidekick already runs in multi-thread, so if we had like a very, very big issue in our code, we should have been experiencing that for a very long time already. So I think the main concern is the Rails code itself, like the framework code. But that seems to be stable.
Cool. The second question as well. We used Geo to migrate .com. Have we since stopped using it completely on .com?
Yeah, Sid, I'm going to pull up an epic for you. There's a lot of work that's going on to re-enable Geo on .com, but I don't think that we're using it on the .com deployment.
And re-enabling it, re-enabling for what? What will be the config? Like, how will we use it in a way that adds value?
Well, Geo adds value in two ways, right? One is a data replication, and one's a disaster recovery scenario. And so I suppose, once Geo's up and running, we can use it in a DR type event. The other one is just to enable our redundancy from an HA perspective. Obviously, your cloud service provider is going to give you some of that just in the services that we use, but that would be the primary use case there in case something does happen to our primary GCP data center or something like that where GitLab.com is running.
Have you thought about using it to speed up download times for people in the European Union? Yeah,
we have, and that's somewhat complementary work. So I'm gonna, if you give me a second, I'm gonna actually in slide 10 of the presentation, of the group conversation presentation here, one of the things the Geo team is working on is automatically choosing the Geo node for the best user experience. So there's a whole bunch of stories in there that relate to essentially allowing someone to have a single interface into their GitLab instance, but then to essentially serve them data and give them an experience that is going to be most performant based on where they are geographically. And so this is not just going to be useful for GitLab.com, but obviously our customers. And so when you look at what's next for enablement, and specifically in the Geo department, that's some work that we've got going on as well. That's a large epic. There's a number of issues in there. Some of those are slated for our next release, which is 12.2 and 12.3.
Okay, and so the primary will refer a download request to a secondary if that's the better option for the user, or how should I see this?
Yep, that's the goal. So the epic description has a great summary here, which is essentially letting users hit one URL and then kind of arbitrating between the two of those based off of between their primary and their Geo deployment based off of what can serve content the quickest based on where they are in the world. So once this is enabled and we get Geo on .com, which is just another GitLab instance, obviously we'll be able to take advantage of this feature too.
Thanks.
William, looks like you have the next question. Yeah, do you want to go ahead and voice that?
Yeah. So I was just looking at slide 11. It looks like there are some challenges. One of them related to Kubernetes and the cloud native distribution. And I was just wondering if you can just share with a bit of the team what some of those challenges are that you've encountered, and kind of how you're thinking, what the current state is, how you're thinking about it, how you're approaching it. And then in particular, if there's any state specifically about OpenShift on either what the challenges are that we need to figure out to overcome or what our next steps are with OpenShift.
Yeah, let me unpack that just a little bit. There's a couple questions in there, it sounds like. Kind of going backwards from the OpenShift question, we are working to understand the access changes that we need to make, our permissions. There's a person that's working on that specifically, but I don't think is on the call right now. It's an ongoing thing. We make changes, then we find new issues that we need to address as OpenShift progresses. But the idea is...
Sorry, Stephen, does the person have a name?
Yes, Hussein.
Thanks.
Yeah, he's in Australia, so he's not on the call, but he has been working specifically on OpenShift permission problems to help us understand what needs to change. And then backing into the question, issues that we've seen is overall complexity between our Helm and our operator, our Helm charts and our current operator. We have issues when we upgrade where services don't start and stop in the right order, or services say they're stopped, but they're not, and things get stomped on. We're making great progress on that. Jason, I think you are on the call if you want to talk a little bit more about sort of the specifics we're seeing with the operator and Helm, help us kind of paint the picture a little better.
Sure, yeah, I'm here. So we've been trying for a while now to develop an operator that handles the actual life cycle of the application instance itself. What we've run into, however, is when we integrate that operator and deploy that through Helm into Kubernetes, we're starting to see a problem where Helm and its way of converging all the settings and making sure that the state matches what it expects does not align to what we're expecting it to actually deploy. So we have Kubernetes doing some of the work. We have Helm trying to reconcile everything. And then we have our operator in between the two going, well, it should be paused. Helm told it should be paused, but Kubernetes hasn't paused it yet. And then it gets paused, and then Helm unpauses it, and then Kubernetes tries to pause it again. In the meantime, the wrong pods are starting in the wrong order. We're actually looking at entirely reworking the way that the operator behaves at this point because of a problem like this. We're starting to have to put some really janky workarounds to try and get it to work. And issues like this are one of the primary reasons we haven't actually gotten anywhere near releasing the operator behavior itself as any kind of GA functionality.
Thanks, Jason. William, does that cover most of your question or questions?
Yeah, that's helpful. That's helpful for me, and anything that you all wanted just to share about that. I think it's a lot of interesting work going on.
Thanks. Yeah, there's an epic that Jason wrote that describes sort of our multi-phase operator. I'll put that in the document here. It's worth a read. We're soliciting feedback on that. So if you've got some questions or ideas, please add it.
All right, back over to you, Sid, on Elasticsearch.
Yeah, we're struggling a bit with Elasticsearch. We still don't have proper repo search on .com, and it looks like it will get more important in the future. For example, you could imagine for .com, we offer the possibility to we have other DevOps. We allow you to bring your own cluster. Maybe we offer clusters in the future, who knows? But maybe we offer the option to manage our logs as well. If you look at the Twilio and how well they're doing, like if you have a consumption model where you kind of offer a service that automatically grows over time, that's an interesting business model. All in all, Elasticsearch is getting used for more and more, like from repo search to issue search to logs to threat detection. Should we double down and make sure that we're experts at Elasticsearch? And I'm not sure that should come in the form of a team or experts, but I think right now we don't have enough people who are really good at that. And I wonder whether that is a shared concern and how we're going to solve it.
I can give my thoughts, and then Chun would love to hear your thoughts, or really anyone else in engineering as well. So my thought is, and just to level set for everyone else on the call or who may be watching, is that Elasticsearch right now is driven out of our create stage, which is actually in our dev section. So it's not in enablement today. And the primary reason that we made that decision was because, as Sid mentions, the primary use case here is for code search and repository searching. And so originally search wasn't planned. It's moved to create. It's listed as a non-marketing category within our editor group right now. There's a number of initiatives going on with respect to Elasticsearch. One of the first of those is enabling Elasticsearch for GitLab.com. Unfortunately, it doesn't come for free. We have to run infrastructure to handle the index size for Elasticsearch. There's an issue that I pasted in the agenda doc that kind of outlines some of that and where that lies with respect to our infrastructure team's priorities. I think, to maybe succinctly answer your question, Sid, I think we should consider a team that is focused on Elasticsearch. I don't think that it's maybe getting the right amount of prioritization and or visibility and focus right now. The other thing to consider too is that we just refactored the dog fooding coach product manager in the enablement section into an infrastructure PM that's going to work more closely with the infrastructure engineering team to help prioritize and to bring a bit more of like an ROI driven approach to prioritization there. This is something that they could also take on as well. So that could be a consideration.
Yeah, I think what's also happening is the normalization of deviation. Like we're now looking at the cost. We're looking at ROI. Look, search on GitLab.com for a repo is broken. It's not okay. We host people's repos. They should be able to search those. So just the fact that we're talking about ROI and cost tells me that in this case, we just don't realize how bad of an experience it is. We're teaching people at GitLab, like, hey, you have to download the repo locally to even search in it. Now, we don't have to do that anymore because we fix it for ourselves, but that's not an experience that's acceptable to our users. And I think as a company, we'll put our head in the sand of how big of a problem this is for our users and how unacceptable this is compared to, like, we want to be up there with the best of the solutions. I think we are in every single way except for this. So that's about repo search on .com, which is kind of separate from this, but I want to articulate that.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'll take that back to the team and pass that along.
Yeah, and I'll take this to the the product engineering meeting to review as well. Both things like, hey, do we need more experts here? I think we should focus on this when hiring, but also why do we see it as acceptable having search broken? Like what? I think it's the normalization of deviation. Like we didn't have it, we assume we have a good product, so apparently we can live without it. But I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I guess I would just say one thing. I don't think that I've made the statement, nor anyone on the product team has made the statement that the repo search is acceptable. And so I think it just comes down to one, maybe reprioritizing some things, and two, driving more focus there by maybe we could make a working group on Elasticsearch. That could be an example to kind of get this a little bit more focus and priority in the short term. So I'll consider doing that and taking action. So
cool. I might have misread some of the comments. It indeed says it's important to understand the cost of the infrastructure, but it doesn't say, hey, we should consider the cost. Whether we do, the cost should be a factor in doing this at all. It says like, hey, we should consider the cost and how we solve it. So I misread a bit there, maybe.
Yeah, no worries. I'll get right on that one. Tanya, you have the next question. Do you want to verbalize it?
Yes, thank you. So this is for Eric or Sean, whichever one of you makes more sense to answer it. I hope that you could talk through the purpose and mission of the ecosystem group, and then also the general plan for building the group of people who work on it.
Eric, you want to start or? Oh, Patrick, go ahead.
I would also be happy to take that. So I'm the senior PM for ecosystem. I just started in the deck. We've got a couple of notes on this. I just started last month. We're just starting to build out the team. So we've got a scope of work that is going to include all of our third-party integrations. So there's a little bit of a nuance there in that sometimes third-party integrations actually make sense directly for the purpose of the product. Like they're a core feature. So like we've talked about OpenShift integration, right? Like OpenShift is a core part of how we deploy stuff, right? So that's, or how we'd like to be able to deploy things, right? So that's not an ecosystem concern, but things like the integrations with Jira So we'll be handling third-party integrations with products where our customers need to see these to be able to adopt the product. We're also, over time, looking to expand into managing and nurturing our APIs and building out really great SDKs to allow for future development by outside organizations. And then in the fullness of time, we'd like to look at building a marketplace as more integrations are out there, helping make a more robust marketplace for our customers to be able to discover those and integrate them with their installation. So we're starting small. We've got a small team that's getting stood up. We've got 2 hires that are starting in the beginning of September and November. We've got a couple more offers that we're looking to send out. We've got both of those are back-end engineers. We've got 1 more front-end engineer opening that we're looking to fill, and then we have an engineering manager role that we may have filled. We're kind of in the process of figuring that out, but we're hoping to have. Oh, update.
Update. So the offer we just developed yesterday, so we are hoping to send out today or tomorrow if it gets approved.
Cool. So that's awesome. So we're hoping we can have that team really rolling here in the next couple of releases. As far as kind of our first steps, because this is a brand new team, we've got a global optimization issue that we've opened up. So we're looking to maybe borrow ahead to kind of bootstrap that team and get them started. And then I've put together a scope of work that is primarily focused right now on Jira integration. It's a really big request from a lot of customers, and it's really vital to being able to work with primarily larger enterprises. But a lot of people really like Jira for project and program management. So we've got a handful in the first. We're hoping to hit the 12.3 release. Some like Jira bugs that have been there for a while, low-hanging fruit, and then hopefully by 12.4 we can start addressing some Jira configuration updates, like real great quality of life improvements that are small, but I think it's going to be a really great start for the team.
That was so detailed. Thank you very much.
Hey, Patrick, I'm very supportive of the Jira integration improvement. So great that you're focusing on that. I think it's really important. What's a native integration?
A native integration, so integrations that happen inside the GitLab code base. So places where we're writing code inside of GitLab CE and EE that goes out and integrates with another product, as opposed to in other companies and products where you'll see third-party integrations that are just like a plugin or they're from another place.
Don't we have a difference between integrations we maintain ourselves inside the code base, so GitHub, Jira, Jenkins, and those provided by others? How do you call that distinction?
So I think there's, if I'm reading it correctly, like there are the things that you've listed that we're maintaining and managing ourselves. I'd also like to think of anything that another company is reaching inside of GitLab and adding to our product, that's still native, right? Like it's still something that we own. Okay. I think the distinction lies in there are going to be places where there are organizations that are building integrations in their product, which are hitting the GitLab APIs. And right now, I think that falls kind of more under the domain of the alliances and partners groups. With support from PM and engineering, that's more of a partnership opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're thinking about this right. I think it's important to have a distinction between the free integrations that we as a company are super focused on and all the other integrations. And both of them live in the GitLab code base. So all of them are native, but not all of them are things like we invest time in. And I think native kind of might put some people on the wrong foot where they think it's something we maintain. So I consider having a word for that distinction as well. Can you unpack marketplace? Marketplace is a monetary aspect to me, but that might not be what you mean.
Yeah, so I think that's a tough one. That I haven't really gotten to spike that deep into, and I think there's a really broad discussion around what that needs to be. There is definitely an approach to it that can can be monetary. And so to level set with everybody, the idea of a marketplace that is monetary is a place where there are a lot of approaches to it. But for example, the Salesforce marketplace allows customers to buy third-party products and services through that marketplace. And then Salesforce takes a piece of that revenue and handles the billing.
Yeah, I understand what marketplaces are, and Atlassian
No,
has them, and everyone else.
Right.
So I think here we got to be very careful of confusion. And
Right.
I'd caution you. I think because we're open source, things work very different than from proprietary companies. So because we're open source, it's much more likely people can add it to the product, and you lose the monetary aspect. You don't get money back. But I think that's a thing we're doing in place of a marketplace. So I think we'll, for example, never have a marketplace. So make sure that we stay aligned there, and that we don't waste a whole bunch of time on things that might really distract from where we need people to focus.
Sure. Yeah, and I was just trying to get everybody on the same page because it's kind of a confusing topic. There's also a very different approach to it in which you can think of a marketplace, which does kind of take away from the monetary aspect, as being a central place for discoverability of other products that work work well with our product, making it more of it's almost just documentation around how do I find these things, how do I integrate them with my product, what are the availability of those things, which kind of a different tack from it. And I think there is some discussion and discovery that needs to be done on what makes more sense for us from the business side and from the product side and from the user experience.
Yeah, I think we already have that. It's our partners page, and that could use some love. So instead of trying to, I'd focus there, making sure that page is better and that it's more discoverable. Like there's, I think 20 API clients on there, 20 CLI clients. I cannot tell which one is maintained. That will be very worthwhile. So consider iterating there a bit instead of starting a new initiative. Make the existing thing better.
Okay, so it looks like it's me next. Question for Patrick is, how do we identify what becomes native? Is there a prioritization mechanism? Like, if there's a customer, a large customer that wants something that needs to be built to integrate with a product that they're using, but it is something that can be used elsewhere. How do we decide that becomes a native integration versus a what you considered a marketplace or a plugin type integration or third-party integration? How can you describe, or maybe it's too early to describe a process around that, but is there something that you're?
Yes, we've got we're never going to have an infinitely large development team, right? So we've got to be choosy about the things that we decide to build and maintain in-house. So right now, I think it's a little too early to make a broad statement around how prioritization is going to work. I'm still going through and evaluating what's out there today. But I think a big part of it is going to be what impacts the largest set of our customers. Thinking through like what the possible reach of an integration can be. And then I think the other piece of it is going to be what is the biggest driver as far as possible deal size or impact to our overall revenue. There are definitely some integrations that are going to be used by a smaller set of customers, but those customers are much larger. And vice versa, right? Like we've got some things like we've gotten a ton of requests for thinking of smaller ones like some chat integrations, right? Like, so some chat integrations are going to have less impact on large deal size, but they're going to have a broader impact on a larger set of customers. And then we've got some like portfolio management and workflow management tools. I think there was a ton of discussion in the last couple of days around ServiceNow integration. And ServiceNow integration impacts a small set of customers, relatively speaking, but it's a very large set of users and it's a very large set of revenue. So kind of weighing those pieces and kind of figuring out what are going to be the biggest drivers is going to what's going to prioritize. Oh, and I will. Eric had a great note in there. Right now, it is definitely Jira is the top priority. Jira, Jenkins, and GitHub are really our biggest ones. We've been talking around Salesforce integration, and like I said, I just did a ton of research on ServiceNow. I think that's probably one that's potentially coming up on the slate as well. And I think that is time.
Great.
And
have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Have a good one.